Over the last 3 years in baseball, the best team has been the Los Angeles Dodgers, winning a staggering 66% of their games. That's 2 out of every 3 games they suited up for, which is remarkable in baseball. That amounts to an impressive 255 wins over 2 full seasons in a pandemic-shortened 2020. Now, as impressive as that is, it pales in comparison to what I think is the most impressive 3-year team performance, maybe in the history of any sport. You see, in that same 3-year period, the Tampa Bay Rays have totaled 236 wins and a slightly less 61.46% winning percentage. I know what you're thinking. How could that possibly be more impressive than the Dodgers, who have won 19 more games over that same 3-year stretch? Well, the answer is what I think is the greatest win predictor in baseball: payroll. You see, the Dodgers, along with other teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Astros, have seemingly unlimited payroll. Bet wrong on a huge player salary? No problem, just bear it and move on. Have a gap in your roster? No problem, just go out and buy the contract with the best player available on the market. Now, don't get me wrong, teams still have to perform on the field, so I'm not taking anything away from the Dodgers. After all, fans for the Mets and the Phillies and the Cubs all know a thing or two about huge payrolls and underperforming teams. But every once in a while, you find underdogs with extremely low payrolls that perform well beyond their potential. But that happens usually 1 or maybe 2 years before big market teams and therefore big budget teams choke small market teams out of the top of the standings. However, the Rays have managed to find a way to stick around, winning the highly contested AL East pennant 2 of the last 3 years, finishing above the mighty Boston Red Sox all 3 years, even though spending $230 million less. Over the last 3-year stretch, the Dodgers spent $1.9 million per win. Think about it, $2 million for each and every win, second only to the New York Mets, who've lost a lot more. Compare that to the Rays with the lowest cost per win in baseball over that same stretch, spending only $539,000 per win. The Dodgers spent nearly 4 times as much money to win about the same number of games. So how on earth can a team with 28% of the payroll compete to win in this league? One word: data. They have to be masters of analytics. Even the slightest mistake in a high-cost player's salary can set the team back for years to come. As a result, the Rays put less emphasis on home runs and batting average, to very costly stats, and focus more on players' on-base percentage. For pitching, they deprioritize the high price of starter wins or earned run average and emphasize stats that promote run prevention. The formula is as basic as it gets. You can't score regularly without getting on base, and you can't win without limiting your opponent's runs scored. Voila, one of the most impressive 3-year runs by any team in sport. Okay, so who cares, right? Now, I think personally that Billy Beane and the A's brilliantly defied 100 years plus of common logic in baseball. Other teams like the Rays have continued to push the envelope in rethinking the most important components of a winning team. I think we're seeing the early stages of baseball disruption. And although baseball purists dismiss Moneyball, I personally love it because it's the only way that I see that small market teams can compete, at least for the long haul. There's no doubt that business disruption is all around us. And just like the Rays, businesses that lack deep pockets must find ways to effectively compete in a very crowded market. Teams like the A's and the Rays provide the highest ROI to owners and fans. Business leaders have the same concerns. How do I narrow my focus and apply the most amount of leverage on the few areas of my business that produce the greatest return? The Rays have proven that reporting is very different than true analytics. With today's technology, the vast amount and types of data that can be captured are much wider and deeper. As a result of computer-driven analytics, we can now uncover unconventional KPIs that really truly drive the business to new heights, ultimately allowing business to apply fewer resources in the areas that afford the greatest amount of leverage. The question is, what are the KPIs for your business? I wouldn't assume that you know the answer or the current APIs that you're tracking and measuring are the right ones that accurately predict your team's performance. When a team relying on conventional metrics and gut feel is up against a more informed team basing actions on rich analytics, the result is much more predictable than you might imagine. So how do businesses think more like the Tampa Bay Rays and create a competitive advantage with less resources? A good start is to start thinking in terms of analytics to learn and validate instead of traditional reporting and gut feel. Then you have to find a way to be able to source that data to support the analytics. Think outside of the traditional reporting structure you have in place today. After doing so, you may find that your effort and the valuable resources are being spent on driving key metrics that only partially provide the results you're looking for. Other and more predictable indicators can be providing more leverage in your business. Never stop looking for a better data set to measure and manage. Just like baseball, the strategy to win in business is constantly changing. Don't let yourself be disrupted.